Hello, this is Max. At the beginning of the film, we see a post-apocalyptic world devastated by a deadly virus that has turned most of the population into zombies. As a result, societies worldwide have crumbled, and humanity has regressed to primitive ways of living. Don't forget to subscribe. The story revolves around a couple named Andy and Kay, along with their one-year-old daughter Rosie, who miraculously survived the outbreak. They have found refuge on a houseboat, struggling to sustain themselves amidst the chaos. One evening, while Andy is steering the boat, he notices two children playing by the riverbank. Surprised, he calls out to them, but eventually continues his journey when the children's father appears, armed with a revolver. After some time, Andy stops at a location to gather supplies from the river. Despite their recent encounter, Kay reveals that their food reserves are dangerously low. She suggests that they explore the land in search of better supplies. However, Andy remains skeptical, fearing the inherent dangers that lie beyond their boat's relative safety. The following day, Andy stumbles upon an abandoned boat near the riverside, filling him with excitement. Intrigued, he enters the boat to investigate and discovers a plentiful supply of food, along with a bottle of wine. While searching for additional provisions, he suddenly hears unusual sounds emanating from another room. Displaying his intelligence, Andy decides to exercise caution and refrains from investigating the source of the noises. Instead, he promptly returns to his own boat. Upon his return, he hands the supplies to Kay, but she harbors suspicions about their origin and nature. Later, after Andy has drifted off to sleep, Kay takes it upon herself to explore the abandoned sailboat alone. Under the impression that the place is safe, she remains oblivious to the lurking danger concealed within. Tragically, as she scavenges for supplies, an unknown creature emerges and drags her into its clutches, inflicting a bite upon her. In the subsequent scene, Andy awakens to the sound of Rosie's sobbing and immediately begins searching for Kay. His alarm intensifies when he notices blood stains on the floor, sparking panic within him. Meanwhile, Kay finds herself in the bathroom, desperately trying to stanch the bleeding from her knee. Aware that the bite came from a zombie, Kay realizes she has less than 48 hours before succumbing to the same fate. With time running out, she explores a bag that Andy had retrieved earlier from the river. Inside, she discovers a bracelet that counts down the remaining time until transformation, which she wears, as well as an injection that can painlessly neutralize the infected person's brain. After some time, Andy attempts to talk about their possibilities with Kay, but she is too shaken to respond. Observing her state, Andy makes the decision to take a significant gamble by choosing to explore onshore in search of medical assistance elsewhere. Meanwhile, a local Aboriginal girl named Fumi is doodling in her notebook. Eventually, she exits her hideout carrying a dead rabbit, which she tosses into a nearby hole. Suddenly, bubbling noises emanate from the pit, annoying the young girl. Andy and Kay stumble upon an abandoned vehicle and enter it. As they prepare to depart, a zombie suddenly approaches, but they manage to escape unharmed. After driving for a while in the wilderness, Andy pulls over to consult the map, while Kay tends to Rosie's needs. At that moment, Kay begins to experience the initial symptoms of the zombie virus, collapsing to the floor and convulsing. Quick to react, Andy calms her down. The scene transitions back to Thumi, who throws a snake into the same pit, but this time, there are no sounds emitted. Concerned, she hastily retreats from the area. Meanwhile, in the car, Kay gradually regains her senses and examines her wound, which is now oozing a yellow, slime-like substance. Horrified, she storms out of the car, accusing Andy of withholding the truth about her condition. She expresses her desire to leave, citing Rosie's safety as the primary reason. However, Andy manages to calm her down, assuring her that they will seek medical assistance soon. Before continuing their journey, Andy deliberately destroys the car's door handle, preventing Kay from attempting to escape once again. In the subsequent scene, while the family is on their journey, Andy's attention is caught by a man on the road, prompting him to swerve sharply to avoid hitting him. Tragically, the car collides with a tree, resulting in severe injuries for Kay. Rosie, fortunately, remains unharmed, but Andy succumbs to exhaustion and loses consciousness. Several hours later, Andy regains consciousness and tries to wake Kay, only to discover that she has already transformed into a zombie. Filled with fear, he attempts to exit the vehicle with Rosie but ends up being bitten by the zombified Kay. Miraculously, Andy manages to escape and administers an injection to Kay in an attempt to pacify her. He then takes Kay's bracelet and places it on himself before embarking on his journey with Rosie securely strapped to his back. Rosie, accustomed to being with her mother, cries incessantly until Andy applies Kay's perfume to soothe her. After some time, while the father-daughter duo is resting, Andy notices the man responsible for their accident. However, he realizes that the man has turned into a zombie. Frightened, Andy prepares to defend himself, but Thumi arrives just in time and diverts the attention of the zombie, who is revealed to be her father. Thumi draws blood from her hand to lure the zombie away. In the following scene, Andy stumbles upon a school where he encounters Etta, a retired teacher. Etta kindly assists him in tending to his bite wound and warns him to be cautious around Rosie. Etta also reveals that all the Aboriginal people in the area have left the region. Later, Andy ventures out and notices a flame ignited by the Aboriginal tribes. It becomes apparent that they are searching for Thumi. That night, while Andy is inspecting the surroundings, he suddenly collapses to the floor and experiences convulsions, indicating that he has limited time remaining before he transforms into a zombie. The following morning, Andy regains consciousness and goes outside to meet Etta. She suggests that he seek out an Aboriginal named Willie, known for caring for small children. Unbeknownst to Etta, Willie is actually Thumi's zombified father. Before Andy sets off, he is cautioned to steer clear of the Aboriginals, who kill any zombies they encounter. After a while, Andy arrives at an isolated location to give Rosie water. There, he notices several zombies with their heads buried in the ground. Filled with fear, he hastily retreats, but one zombie starts following him. Andy spots a vehicle and tries to take it, but he is interrupted by a man named Vic, who rescues him from the pursuing zombie. Vic becomes trapped under some gas tanks, so he hands the car keys to Andy, promising to be rescued later. Without wasting time, Andy starts the car and frees Vic from the weight that had trapped him. The two quickly drive away, leaving the zombies behind. In the next scene, the duo arrives at Vic's refuge, a former gas plant outpost. There, Andy meets Vic's wife, Lorraine, who is surprised to see him. After a while, Vic suggests that Andy leave Rosie with Lorraine, so the men can work together. It is revealed that Vic is a zombie collector who eliminates zombies and collects their valuables. He believes that in the future, when the world returns to normal, people will pay handsomely for these items. However, his methods of attracting the dead are controversial, as he uses live humans as bait to lure and trap zombies. Andy approaches one of the cages and is saddened to find Thumi trapped inside. Inside the shelter, as Lorraine plays with Rosie, she discovers the yellow slime on the baby's belly. Outside, Vic and Andy go to another cage to attract zombies, using intestines, a radio, and blood. These actions cause Andy to question himself momentarily. When the men return to the shelter, Lorraine mentions that she cleaned up little Rosie. Later, while Andy is with his daughter, his hand suddenly starts twitching. Concerned, he quickly puts Rosie back in her makeshift crib. At that moment, Lorraine approaches him and reveals that she is not actually Vic's wife. In fact, the treacherous Vic saved himself by sacrificing her husband and other workers at the gas plant. As the two discuss this revelation, Vic arrives with a gun. He knocks out Andy using the same weapon, and the scene fades to black. Upon waking up, Andy finds himself in the same cage as Thumi. Desperate to escape, he formulates a plan and attaches raw intestines to a rope. The plan succeeds, and a horde of zombies start pulling the rope, causing the door to open. Seizing the opportunity, Andy and Thumi make a run for it. They manage to return safely to the shelter, where they retrieve Lorraine and Rosie. As they attempt to flee, Vic appears and starts shooting at them. Lorraine bravely steps forward to intervene, but it is too late, as Vic accidentally shoots and kills her. In the subsequent scene, the trio successfully escapes from Vic and decides to spend the night in a small cave. Andy and Thumi help each other break free from their chains and eventually fall asleep. However, in the middle of the night, Thumi wakes up to strange noises and witnesses Andy exhibiting zombie-like characteristics. The following morning, Andy reverts back to his normal self, and the group continues their journey. However, he abruptly informs Thumi that her father will not recover, which deeply upsets the little girl, leading her to run away. Thumi eventually discovers her deceased father hanging from a tree. Andy rushes to console her, But when Thumi responds ungratefully, he quickly departs. Andy experiences another nervous breakdown and attempts to bury his head in the ground. Meanwhile, Thumi remains heartbroken by the tree but rushes to help Rosie upon hearing her cry. When Andy regains consciousness, he is surprised to find Thumi by his side, offering assistance in reaching the river. Later, they board a motorboat and head to the camp where Andy last saw the family with the 2 children. Upon arrival, they find an RV but no signs of anyone. Andy and his daughter decide to leave and search for the family, while Thumi chooses to stay behind. Eventually, Andy spots the father of the family, only to realize he has been bitten by a zombie. The man reveals a loaded revolver for the second time, claiming there are 6 bullets, 4 of which he intends to use on himself and his family. He also tells Andy that he can use the remaining 2 bullets once his family is gone. Horrified by the suggestion, Andy tries to stop the man but fails. Dejected, Andy hears 4 gunshots, flinching at each one, signaling the family's demise. Andy takes the gun and contemplates doing the unthinkable. However, Thumi approaches him, removes her leaves, and declares that she is ready to return home. This revitalizes Andy's hope, as he now has a purpose to reach the Aboriginal people. His plan is to find a way to reach them and entrust Rosie to their care. Continuing their journey, the trio arrives at a railroad tunnel, where they are suddenly confronted by Vic. Filled with fear, Andy distracts Vic while Thumi hides with Rosie inside a nearby parked truck. A fight ensues between Andy and Vic, and despite Andy's attempts to shoot Vic, he misses each time. After the altercation, Vic emerges from the darkness and snatches Thumi from the car, slamming her head on the rails. As Thumi writhes in pain, Vic takes control of Rosie. Andy, limping, checks on Thumi, who is still alive. He then confronts Vic, demanding the return of his daughter. Initially resistant, Vic ultimately relinquishes Rosie while mourning the death of Lorraine. The group continues their journey, but unfortunately, Andy's time as a human runs out and he begins transforming into a zombie. Summoning his remaining strength, he pleads with Thumi to take care of his little girl. After Thumi agrees, Andy bids her farewell, places a guard in his mouth to prevent harm, and secures his wrists with a piece of meat from earlier. Andy falls unconscious and awakens as a zombie. Despite being transformed into an emotionless monster, he continues to carry the children on his back, drawn to the meat attached to the stick. Enduring the scorching heat, the group finally arrives at the Aboriginal camp. The natives apprehend Andy, while Thumi and Rosie are approached by Thumi's mother. At that moment, an elderly native attempts to eliminate Andy, but Thumi intervenes. She grabs Kay's perfume bottle and sprays it on Andy one last time. Surprisingly, the scent briefly brings him back to life, and he takes his final breath. Following this, Thumi finally allows the native to put an end to Andy's suffering. The movie concludes as the Aboriginals examine Rosie and discover a thank you note written on her tummy. If you are interested in such films, please proceed to the next video on the screen and also share your thoughts about this film in the comments. Give us a like